Hello, Christine. It's Johnny speaking. We're just waiting on some of the rest of the attendees arriving, so we'll be with you shortly. Hopefully not too long. Thanks for coming along. Hello, can you hear me? Speaking now. Marketing, if you can confirm you can hear me. Excellent. Hi, Christine. Sorry, aware you're waiting. We're just waiting on some more attendees arriving, so thanks for coming along, and we'll be with you shortly. Thanks. Hello everyone, thank you. You can see you arriving. We're just hanging on until a few more people to arrive and sit down, so to speak, so we'll be with you shortly. Thanks. Okay, folks, we'll just give it one more minute, let a couple more people arrive, and we'll just get started. Thank you for waiting. Hello everyone. I'm conscious to keep you hanging on there with nothing happening, so we'll get started, and if anyone else joins as we go, then hopefully they catch the demo part. They don't need to hear from me as much. So thank you everyone for coming and taking time out your busy days today. Sometimes it's good to break things up near the end of the week with something like this, but I was hoping to be with my colleagues in the office today, but COVID has got me after avoiding it for 2 years, so apologies for my coldy voice as well, and I hope you're all well. The webinar today will cover information on the XRL reporting module and the potential benefits it could have for your business. So some of our customers that currently operate the module consider this an essential part of their system and overall process. And they use it daily and are still coming up with further use for it against the growing needs of their business. Alison and Linda are going to provide some valuable information today, show you how this module could streamline your tasks and processes. If you have any questions or any that arise as we proceed, please hang on to them and we'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. And I'll now hand over to Linda, and I will speak to you again at the end. So again, thanks for coming, and talk to you soon.
Hi everyone, hi. Thanks for taking the time to allow us to show you the Pegasus Business Intelligence tool that we call XRL. And it's actually been rebranded and is now known as Info Q&A. So XRL is a Excel add-in extraction tool that can provide easy and an effective way to extract your live data from Opera straight into Excel. It can be used to retrieve, view, analyse and manipulate complex data into easy to understand and familiar spreadsheet formats. These can be accessed by your day-to-day staff and by your directors and management. Once it is extracted into Excel, the standard functionality of Excel will also be available to you. So basically, once it's installed and configured, you will see the Excel add-in, which is Info Q&A, showing at the top of the menu. If we click in here, you'll see a login screen. Everything will be grayed out because you haven't logged in yet, but once you log in, you will see all this functionality will now be available to you. Okay, so just to make a point about the logins can be set up to link to your Opera login. And from there, it means that you have the access that you have in Opera. So if you have access to payroll, you'll be able to extract payroll data. If you don't have access to payroll, then obviously you won't be able to extract the data. So from in here, you will see all the functionality. And the main functionality is the links and the detailed reports. I'm going to hand you over to Alison, who is going to take you through setting up and creating a simple report.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us today. First thing I want to talk about is the types of reports that are available. So the majority of the reports that are used in Q&A, or at least the ones that are used most often, are the ones in this block here. So the reference link, which extracts information from header tables only, the summary link that will extract balances and reference information, the summary report, which will pull out transactional data but summarized, and the detailed report that would pull out details of transactions. So what I've got here is a template that I'm going to populate using a couple of the report types. So I'm going to use the reference link first to pull out information about a particular supplier. So if we go into the reference link, I can link this to a company using a cell in the spreadsheet, or I can fix it to a particular company. But if you've got more than one company, you may want to use the same XRL reports over all the companies that you have. So it makes sense to make that a variable that you can pick at the time you're running the report. I'm pulling the information from the purchase ledger name file, and I want to pull out the supplier's name. I'm just going to pull a couple of lines of the address, but you can see how it works. Telephone number, the contact, and I'm also going to pull out the turnover and the current balance, and I had something else in mind, the credit limit. Once you've got the information extracted there, what we want to do in the first place is tell it which account we want to pull information from. So it's the account reference in that cell there. And then we want to tell it which field on the Excel worksheet, which cell reference we want to populate with the information. So you can move this around a bit. You can have it output to whichever cell reference you want. To make it easy on myself, I've preset this. So that's the turnover, the current balance, and the credit limit. And if we OK that will populate for Carter's Limited. We can also do what's called a data selector, which will let us pick the supplier's account number from a list, and it will automatically update information for that account. I'm also going to show a detailed report which will show you the breakdown of that balance. So again, we're going to pick the company identifier, and we're going to pick the table, and this time it's still purchase ledger, but it's transactions that we're going to look at. So we decide what information we want to pull out, and obviously you pull out the information that would be most relevant to you. But again, this filter criteria, I'm going to say use that one account. All the available information that you can select is on the left-hand side, and there are links to other tables if you need a bit more. We're going to pull out the date, the reference, the supplier's reference. I'm double clicking and it's going over to the right hand side of the window. That's the data that we've selected to output. Type, the value, and I'm going to pull out the balance and drag the balance up to the filter criteria, and I only want the ones that are not equal to 0. So things that have not been allocated or have not been paid or have only been part paid. And if we OK that, I'm going to save this. I always name my definition files. So this is transactions. Just so if I need to come back to it, I can find it again. So that's the outstanding transactions that make up that 43,200 balance. If I now add that data selector, which is in the utilities, and I'm going to tell it that I want it to look at that cell, or I want to populate that cell. I've already set up a definition report. This is why I name them, so that I know which one I'm looking for. Supplier's account numbers in column 1, and I want it to recalculate the workbook when that changes. You can also decide where it puts that wee button. I'm just going to put it on the right hand side. So if I add that selector and close it, if I click on that, I can now pick another supplier. Sales order. Well, it shouldn't have been a sales order file it was looking at. This all works in practice, ladies and gentlemen. So it should have pulled out David Corn's data 583334. So changing the supplier there updates the transactions here. And I'm going to pass you back to Linda, who is going to give you a bit more information about cube analysis.
Hi again. Okay, so basically there's quite a few functions within Infor. We can't possibly go through all of them, but we'll highlight the ones that we particularly think you will use regularly. So cube analysis is quite a useful wee function. It allows you to extract the data into a spreadsheet type. It's almost like a pivot table, and you can manipulate it to get the information that you want. So if we go into cube analysis, Okay, so again, you're getting the same kind of screens that will become familiar. We're picking the company ID, we're picking the table. So in this case, I'm going to look at sales history table. Okay, so we're going into sales and we're going into history. Okay, and again, on the left-hand side, we're getting to see all the fields that are available through the sales history. Now in here, I want to pick, let's say, the account name rather than the account code. Let's say the name, because it's more familiar. Okay, and then we're going to just choose a few fields. So let's look at the date, let's look at the analysis code, the region, the territory, the value, and maybe stock codes. Okay, so you can see in the right hand side the output that's going to come out in our cube analysis. If we then get into options, there is within the data split. Now the split means that we can view this rather than by date, we can do it by year and by month, which is quite good for analysis purposes. If we press OK there, we can then go and populate the cube. Okay, so you can see here, there's nothing in the cube at the moment. This figure here represents everything in sales history, the total value of sales history in your Pegasus system. And then we can start pulling down information just to find out what information we want. So let's say, for instance, we take the name of the customer. So pull that down to your left-hand side, and then you'll see all your customers and everything you've ever sold to them. Now that means really nothing. So let's pull down at the top the year. And you can see quite quickly, here's the years coming out, how much you've sold. And if you even want the analysis further down into months, you can pull that under year and you'll see a little plus box up here, which when you click it, it'll give you the analysis for that year per month. Now, if you decide you actually want to see a seasonal analysis, you don't want the year, you want to see if maybe you sell to a certain customer every December, etc., you can pull the year back up and it'll show you every sale you've made any January period in your system. And again, on the left-hand side, you may want to say, well, I actually quite like to see the stock codes. So it's not actually brought through. So you can go back to criteria and add the stock. I must have not double-clicked it. So if you add the stock reference there and you populate the cube, again, you'll see stock reference coming up here. You pull that back down under name, pull the year down again, and then pull the month down again. Again, you can see you've got your little tick boxes again. So you can open and close these tick boxes to see the type of stock you're selling for that customer, for that year, or for each particular month. Okay, so you can see how powerful this can be. I mean, we're only using sales history, but you can use that to manipulate and get information on the fly as frequently as you wish. You don't have to have a set report each time. You don't have to create a set report. You can create it as and when you wish. So if I go back in here and bring everything up, you can see you're changing the report as you're doing this. And then, say for instance, let's say we take the region and just the year. Okay, so that's sales each year to each region. In here, you can also have a chart. So if we look at just 1 year, I'll show you a chart. Okay, and you can look at multiple years. If we go in and say take 2020 and 2021, you can see the comparison charts. Okay, go back to 2021. You can go into the charts, the very basic charts in XRL, but you can pull the information into Excel to get a more detailed chart. But you can quite easily change that to 2-dimension, 3-dimensional pie to get more information, or information in the format that you wish. And from there, you should be able to copy them and pull it into a spreadsheet. Okay, and finally, you can export any of this out to Excel. So when you have the screen you wish, you just pull it out to Excel, and it's then available for you in Excel to manipulate further or to use the Excel functionality. Okay, so we're going to go back and Alison's going to show you how the data send works within XRL.
Thanks very much.
Alison, sorry, I think you're muted potentially.
Thanks very much, Johnny. That was a waste of time. I've already created a small spreadsheet just with restricted data so that we can look at this. So you're limited in what can be sent back to Opera: budgets in the nominal ledger, customer price lists, and stock take adjustments. So you can't adjust stock by zero, so you need to filter your report just for the things that do need adjusted. But you would pull out from Opera what quantities are showing in Opera, then you would do your stock take and populate what was actually counted. And then this is just a standard Excel formula to see what's the difference between the two. So to make Opera match our stock take, we need to post these adjustments. So in for Q&A, there is a data send. And you'll see when I go into the definition file that there are a number of definitions that you can select from. So you can do your budgets by cost centre and nominal, department and nominal, nominal account only, project and nominal. You can update your price lists and you can update stock. We're going for stock. Once you've selected that, then you need to map the data in your spreadsheet to Opera so it knows what information is where. So your stock reference is there. The bold things are mandatory. You have to populate these items. You can't do the stock adjustment without populating all of these fields. We're just going to say this is going to today. We're posting it today. That's the reference is actually going to be keyed in on each record, and the cost price needs to be populated as well. So there's options in here. You can say send to Pegasus. It will just send it straight to see if there's any errors. So, not muted. So we're going to send to Pegasus, and hopefully you can all hear me, but if not, please let me know if you can. This data will be overwritten. You have to be the only user in Opera stock to be able to do this. So it will overwrite existing data and requires exclusive access, but you have to see that this is a lot quicker than going into each stock item. And if there are no errors, this is a lot quicker than going into each stock item and keying it in. And I'm not actually seeing any errors unless they're behind there. Sorry folks, bear with me, a little technical hitch. Let me load the definition. And I'll say stock adjustments. So my error cell is D1. I'll say send to Pegasus. Yep. And it's saying E11 serial item is not valid, right? So I've included a serial number item in this on row 11. So just for the sake of this, I'm going to delete that. Serial number items, you have to populate a serial number when you update them. So if we do the data send again, load the definition. So if you end up doing something, saving a definition and naming it appropriately is a good idea. We'll say send it to Pegasus. Yes, yes. And that's updated 18 records in Opera. So if we have a look at CMAT 044 in Opera, I'm sure you're all familiar with demo data. You'll see that it's showing 438 on the main screen, but that is now 392 in the main warehouse, which if we go back to our stock adjustments, 396, what did I say? 392. Just going to go into the stock item, and it's because even though it failed on that one, my apologies, it's actually run it 3 times. So you would make sure you had a backup before you did this. Let me hand you back to Linda so she can show you some of the commercial reports before I make an even bigger mess of it.
Hi everyone, hi. Okay, we're nearly at the end. What we want to do now is just to show you what we could do in terms of reporting for you. So let's have a look. So we could create something like a management suite of reports. So these reports would be available to your directors. They don't need to be an Opera to be an Opera user to see them. We can create a link so that they can actually access. Basically on this sort of landing page is a list of all the reports. In here you would choose your criteria of the year, the period and the current period. And you can click through using each of these buttons. Now when you click through using the buttons, it will go back to Opera and it'll update the records immediately and have the latest information. Now I'm not going to do it that way simply because it does take maybe a minute or two to actually get that data and extract it. But if I go down here, you can see the kind of reports that we can give you. So this is like just a period and year-to-date profit and loss report. We can have a month 1 to 12 report for you, a balance sheet, working capital, and as Alison just showed you about the write backs, you could do a write back budget from here, which basically uses the same functionality, and within this button there is a macro that allows you to save back to Opera, and just various reports such as debtor inquiries, which again has the customer selector. So when you choose that, it gives you the list of your customers, and as you choose it, again, you can see this is disappearing because it's going back to actually update the record. And there you can see it's updated the customer and all the information. Okay, so this is something that would maybe suggest that you have for your management, such as directors or upper level. Another one, the final one I want to show you is the commercials. So if we look at that, it's the same sort of idea. Again, it has these buttons. If you choose the button, it will automatically go back to Opera and calculate the latest information. And these reports, such as delivery dates, stock reorder reports, stock adjustments, etc., they can be tailor-made to what your personal requirements are. Another thing you can do is use the information that's extracted to create charts or diagrams, such as turnover by customers, purchases from suppliers, or your bank balances, which these use Excel charts rather than the XRL, which you can see are a bit more detailed and a bit more impressive to look at. So these things we can certainly discuss with you and either assist you or create them for you. Okay, so that's really all we have to show you today. We'll hand you back to Johnny and let him have the last final words.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks to the both of you, and you didn't make a mess of anything, Alison. I like to think these things are a bit more realistic when you see something like that. It doesn't always go to plan, and certainly when customers are using this sort of thing, you need a bit of assistance when it comes to errors and getting things right, but it all looked great from this end. So yeah, once again, thank you all for coming on today. The promotion that we've secured from Pegasus is essentially a Q2 promotion, but we'll be happy to honour any discount following this webinar on any license purchase. So what we're running is, as you can see, the 15% on the purchase of one license and 20% total discount on purchase of two. So the discount doesn't apply to any annual maintenance uplift that would apply to your contract, and there is a small amount of consultancy required to set up, implement and train initially on the module, depending on your requirements. We can assist further depending on what kind of reports you might want to initially set up. If you had something that was a bit more bespoke, then we're there to assist with that as well. So if you do have any questions, any further questions about the pricing, feel free to contact me directly. I'd be happy to give you an answer to that and get you a proper quote over. If you have any other questions at all just now, be happy to hear them. And you can build them to our webinar software here, as it were. I know it's always you never really want to ask a question on these sort of things in front of the crowd, but you can always fire them over to me afterwards. I've been given a question here from my fabulous marketing team. Do I need to purchase the same number of XRL licenses as Opera licenses? You don't. The XRL licenses are completely separate from the Opera license. You could have 5 users Opera license, and you could purchase maybe 2 or 3 XRL licenses. XRL can then be installed on all 5 machines and all 5 users, but only 2 or 3 users would be able to get access, so they are concurrent licenses, the same as Opera. So that answers your question. I have another question here, just on the final one, it seems. So, can users who do not access Opera have access to XRL? So yes, they can. I'll potentially pass you to Linda to answer that one.
Hi, Johnny. Yeah, users can be set up in Opera who don't actually use Opera Financials themselves. You can set them up in XRL to either link them to one general access, so they only have access to possibly nominal, so that they can see the profit and loss balance sheets. I'm thinking mostly of directors who don't actually want to see the transactions, they don't want to have to deal with anything, they just want the information out. So yes, you can, although they don't use Opera, they can have an access set up so that they can extract the information. So yes, that is possible.
Thank you. And one last one here. Will the management and commercial reports be provided with XRL? Linda, if you wanted to.
No, that's fine. Alison, I'm taking that one. The management and commercial reports will be provided with XRL, but they are set up to run with the demonstration data. So unless your data matches the setup that the demo data does, they won't run straight out of the box on your system. They would need some modification. So they can be modified to suit your requirements, but the chances are that your requirements would be slightly different anyway, but they could be used as a basis and we could improve on that for each customer. That's
Super.
it.
Thank you. Right, well, thank you once again for coming and joining us today. It's something we will endeavour to do a bit more of in terms of the sort of overall Pegasus ecosystem, maybe parts of the system people aren't as aware of, and we'd like to maybe move towards some further training towards things like XRL for our current XRL licensed customers. So if that's something you're interested in, you end up taking on the module, and then look out for some further correspondence about additional training that we might be providing on the module. It's aimed at making people a bit more self-sufficient with the system, and maybe not requiring as much support or assistance in those scenarios. So thank you once again for coming on, and we'll hope to hear from you soon. And thank you to Alison and Linda.
Thanks, everybody.